Alright, so continuing on, I've been testing even more farming strategies. And this one was pretty successful, though I'm not fully happy with the results. That said, with a little tweaking, there's a lot of potential here, and I'm very excited to talk about it. But this was also a very expensive test. I bought supplies for 75 maps, farming in Timemark 8. This includes all the beacons and some compasses. That cost me over 2,000 Flame Elementium. And luckily, I got back way more than 2,000 Flame Elementium. I got about 6,000 Flame Elementium back, counting sellable items while accounting for tax. Not only did I make my money back, I made a handy profit. The whole thing took a little over 3 hours. But 75 maps isn't exactly a huge sample size, so as my stream chat likes to say, consider this a vibe check, not hard science. But hey, if you want to see me do vibe checks on more money-making methods in Torchlight Infinite, then get subscribed because I'm going to keep doing it. And so for now, let's get into things, starting with the basics of a strat, then talking about the void chart, then getting into some of the profitability, and ending everything with what I'd change if I was going to do it again. Alright, another important part of farming strategies is compasses. There's 4 that I use, 3 of which are very important. So first up, folklore. This is how I'm getting all of the Mistville residents to appear in the maps. Rusted folklore compass. Looks like it's decently priced right now at about 5 FE each, though this has fluctuated a bit. You want these so that it will appear because you don't have any of the chances to appear. As a note, you can technically swap the chance to appear for folklore with a chance to appear for Twinightmare if that compass happens to be cheaper. Then the other thing is dated folklore compass. This is significantly more expensive and going up, so it may not remain a profitable part of a strategy for long. But at least when I bought in, I got a whole bunch for like 12 to 14 FE each, and I was definitely getting more than 12 to 14 FE back. This adds extra Mistville residents. As you can see here, 100% chance for 1 additional to appear. More residents equals more eyes, they get duplicated. More eyes that also get duplicated, which you then sell for Flame Elementium. Then third up, Aeterna. And this is where you could actually swap some stuff around. If you didn't need the Mistville residents to appear, for example, you could take dated Aeterna compass, but I was only using the rusted Aeterna compass, which makes Aeterna kin appear within the map. And these are actually quite economical right now. So that's why I was using them. Last up, Samurai compass. This is simply extra mobs, and this was a pretty good balance of both cost and value. That said, you could substitute this for anything else, including the other things that I've referenced so far. It really all depends on what the compass prices are when you're trying this strategy for yourself. So the strat here, pretty simple. Kill mobs in the map that drop lootables which I can pick up and sell to other players. In this case, I decided that the lootables are going to be Mistville, so I kill Mistville residents and sell their eyes, and additionally, all the City of Aeterna stuff so that I can get reverberations and pages. Then adding on top of that, Twinightmare, because it's been a consistently profitable mechanic. I'd say the profit's a little bit down now that you don't get the 5+ beacons, but you do get some pretty cool compasses, so overall, Netherrealm's still holding its value there, and I noticed that Profound Dream Talking was moderately expensive, so I decided that it was worth trying. So I would say it's 100% worth the time that I put into it and the investment on my void chart. My goal was to get high rarity bubbles, prioritizing, of course, commodity and Netherrealm, but if I couldn't get either of those, then I pretty much went for anything that I could get to red or rainbow. Because, as it turns out, memory bubbles are also a pretty good source of Flame Elementium via the cards. So I'd go through the map. I was farming on 8-2 just because that's pretty quick and easy for me, but you should farm on either 8-0, 8-1, 8-2, whatever it is that you could do easily without dying consistently. And again, I'm farming in Steel Forge because I'm playing a minion build and I want to have all those nice juicy star shards. Plus, at least last I checked, they're the highest value ones. And for map, I start the Clockwork Ballet, I go through, I kill everything, I get to the end, and good news, after that, assuming you've killed all the Mistville residents and Aeterna residents that appear along the way, you've done the strat correctly. Also, because a lot of people said I should check out boxes in my last video, I decided to give them another shot. Personally, I think Flame Sand's better. And you know what? After trying boxes more, I still think Flame Sand's better. Yeah, it's really cool when you get a big box explosion with a lot of loot. Most of the time, the box doesn't show up, or it shows up and gives you some mediocre stuff. I would much rather the consistent Flame Sand gains. But hey, more on that in the section for what I do differently. For now, let's get into how I spec stuff. Alright, so first up, Clockwork Ballet. I basically just took everything, except for these nodes here, because I felt like the time was getting a little tight when I had these allocated. So instead, I went for a little bit of extra time. In terms of very important nodes, get these for your chance of a boss. Now, admittedly, most of the time the boss isn't that valuable, but occasionally it drops you a nice pile of Flame Elementium. There's the Clockwork Carnival node. You definitely want that. That's like 100 FE every time I do it. And this node, having things apply to the map as a whole, does make stuff a lot harder. I would not recommend doing this if you're struggling, but if you don't notice the difference between having this on and off, you know what? It is a lot of loot. For my Profound Talent Constellation, this node here, extra compasses. One of the biggest expenses was compasses, so having more compasses saves me more money. Though, as a note, I didn't factor that into the profits at all. So first up, the Nightmare stuff. I started with all the nodes to make sure it appears 100% of the time. The alternative here is just use the compass. That adds extra cost, but allows you to get more rewards. So just putting it into all the lightning nodes so that you get some baseline quant, lightning duration, all that fun stuff. After that, I added some Sleepwalker Elites, some Sweet Dream Mist chance, and of course, the chance to drop a Queen's Grace, because Queen's Grace, very profitable, they're like 70 FE each. So that's what I did for Nightmare nodes. And overall, this ended up being pretty profitable, so I'd definitely keep it for next time and maybe even invest more into it, getting something like this maybe to get even more drop quantity instead of negative effects from Nightmare Omens. Also, if you're wondering why there's 2 unallocated points, it's because I killed 2 bosses after starting the strategy and I didn't want to add it halfway through and change everything. Second thing, Folklore for Mistville. Basically, it's all the eyes and all the eyes. Trying to duplicate residents and duplicate the eyes that they drop. This is very, very effective, especially if you have a compass that adds even more residents. This was a majority of the cost and also a significant portion of the profits. Third up, Aeterna. I figured this would be good because I was going to drop a whole bunch of pages and reverberations. Turns out it was, alright. I didn't really make any money from the Aeterna stuff. It basically just paid for the compasses. So if you want to take those 20 points and put them elsewhere, I'd actually recommend doing that. And you could also even drop these and use this compass instead, because I was using the Aeterna compass. You'd probably get more consistent profits and another like 10 points to put into a different mechanic. Then here, I started going into Winding Keys. This is where I would definitely fill out. I did this. I did not like it. I would not do it again. Instead, I'd come over here and I'd just take all the Flame Sand stuff. This ended up being surprisingly profitable. I made well over 100 FE just from energy core drops because they're selling quite well, at least as of this time. So that's my strategy. Now, let's take a look at the loot that I dropped while doing it. Alrighty, so let's take a look at the loot. Now, there are a couple things in this tab, generic items that dropped, which I was able to sell or put up for sale, but it's not a significant amount of the profits. I'd say it's a couple hundred Flame Elementium at most, and it's probably going to be less. It's probably going to be like 50 to 100. This is probably because I'm not really filtering for items to pick up off the ground, because I'm way too lazy to price check and sell them all. If it's priceless, I'll take a look. If it's legendary, I'll take a look. Aside of that, it's floor trash, and I don't really care that much. So, moving on, let's look at some of the things that are actually really easy to pick up and sell. Starting with the currency tab, where you'll notice I have 2,010 Flame Elementium. Yep, I basically got the entire cost to try this strategy out back in just raw Flame Elementium. Now, like before, with my last test, I mostly cleaned out my inventory. There's a couple things I didn't clean out, things like my Netherrealm resonance. This is just because I don't consider those to be a significant or relevant portion of a profit. I mean, I've got what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7.5k here. I had some before, but each thousand's like 4 FE. We're talking about thousands of Flame Elementium. Whether I'm plus minus 20 here doesn't really matter, so I just couldn't be bothered to actually keep track of that. I also decided to not count the ground quartz, because honestly, it's so little that I'm just going to gamble at crafting. I'm not even going to sell it. But Elixir of Oblivion, Winding Keys, these are valuable. These are, relatively useful still, about 1.5 FE each. So we're talking about 20-ish, another 20-ish here. Not big numbers. This, much bigger. Turns out spec'ing for energy cores is very much worth it, because they've been consistently selling for about 80 FE per 1,000. The Profound Dream Talking, surprisingly quite valuable and seems to be rising. So definitely going to be selling all of these. Twinightmare, quite clutch mechanic, but I'll talk more about that in a little bit. So to put a few of these numbers into perspective, the energy cores, we're looking at about 130. For Profound Dream Talking, we're looking at about 350. And for regular, we're looking at about 150. Keep in mind, I'm rounding a lot. Check the numbers on screen for exacts. And then one Ultimate Ember that dropped was from a Chaos card. It's like 60-ish FE. Whole bunch of Truth Embers. I actually thought these were going to be worthless, but no, surprisingly, this is almost 100 Flame Elementium, as they're around 0.6 FE each, and do sell pretty well in bulk. I'm not counting the Reincarnation Ember because I only got one of them. Then the Flame Sand, we've got about 5,000. It's about 30 each. So 5 times 30, 150 Flame Elementium. Next up, the interesting part, because I was adding 2 additional mechanics using compasses. City of Aeterna, because I thought, hey, gives a lot of droppable items that I can sell. And Mistville. And initially, I thought City of Aeterna was going to perform really well, and Mistville was only going to be so-so. Mostly because I spent almost 1,000 FE on the Mistville compasses. I got back around 1,300 eyes, which sell for 1.2 to 1.3 F each. I'm going to count 1.3 because the last batch that I sold actually did go for 1.3. Looks like the prices may be trending down a little bit, but if so, that's around 1,700 Flame Elementium. So I basically doubled my money, and the Mistville residents are very easy to kill. On the other hand, Pages of Aeterna, they're like 0.3 each. Reverberations, they're like 5-ish. And the little fleeting ones, about 1.5. So I spent around 225 FE on the Aeterna stuff, and I got back about 225 FE. So I didn't lose money, but I didn't really gain money. Probably not going to keep adding Aeterna. I'm going to use those points for something else, maybe test out a mechanic like Dark Surge. Now, coming over here, Steel Forge. This is still pretty darn valuable. In bulk, I found I sell for as high as 3.5 each, which is because, again, people want their Warden's Breastpin. So this is about 300 Flame Elementium. Queen's Grey Slaughter, turns out it's worth way less than before, probably because they buffed the drop rates. Now for the beacons, it's around 140 FE. I got around 30 beacons. I tried to make sure to not accidentally use one of the Steel Forge ones. I will admit I may have accidentally used 1 or 2, so plus minus 10 FE. And this stuff is all just junk I happen to be too lazy to put in, not counting it anyway. All right, so then compasses. Counting the stuff refunded by my Star ILS, I got around 380 Flame Elementium in compasses. This is because some compasses are surprisingly valuable, and some are surprisingly not valuable. Like, I thought this one, the Shiny General, was going to be worth something. Nope, it's 2 FE. Then again, I thought, hey, adding Rusted War, I know War is nice, but it can't be worth that much. Nope, these are worth like 5 FE each. Also, these that drop like crazy, turns out I sold a stack of 99 of them for 0.5 each, so people do actually buy them. All in all, 380 Flame Elementium from the compasses. For the cards, I'm counting them one of 2 different ways. If it's a card that doesn't turn into hard currency, then I'm price checking it and I'm going to treat it as a sellable item. But if it's something that turns directly into raw FE, I'm not applying a tax to this because why would I sell Lost Secrets when I can literally just turn it into 9 raw Flame Elementium? And in total, I got about 700 FE from all the cards, counting the raw FE ones as raw FE and the sellable ones after applying the tax rate. So overall, this is pretty darn cool. I'm very surprised at what was and was not profitable. Let's talk big picture numbers. Going into this, my expectation was I'd get a little bit of money from Mistville. I would get a pretty good amount from Twinightmare, at least from the Twinightmare specific drops. Obviously, I got compasses and Flame Elementium there. That does increase the profit, but it's a little harder to track, so I'm not really counting it. And I would also get a good amount from Aeterna. I made a grand total of 12 Flame Elementium from City of Aeterna. Yeah, it turns out it wasn't very profitable at all, so I'm not going to be doing that again. Now, Twinightmare, just for Twinightmare specific again, that's about 500 FE, and Mistville was about 550, so those are both very profitable mechanics. If we break everything down, I was doing about 25 maps an hour, so 3 hours to do all 75. I spent around 2,100 Flame Elementium on materials, and after tax, I got back around 5,900. So that's a profit of around 3,800 FE, or around 1,250 FE per hour. All right, so what would I do differently? First up, the big change is I dropped the very disappointing City of Aeterna mechanic. Instead, I'm going to put those points into something that's relatively low effort and relatively high reward. So in here, winding keys, and then boss drops. Might as well, these are kind of free-floating points, but if you don't have anything better to put them into, I always like the boss drops. Over here, flame sand stuff, because as I said, I found it to be more consistent than the treasure chests. However, if flame sand keeps going down in price, let's say it goes down to 10 FE per 1,000, these aren't going to be good anymore. On the other hand, if it's like mid-20s to low 30s per 1,000, I would say this outweighs the chests. Speaking of, for Black Sail, I'm basically just making sure there's a plane anchor in every map, and then putting a point into Whisper of Wonder. Maybe taking the points out of a boss drop, going up to a higher chance for Whisper of Wonder, could be worth it. I don't know. Gonna have to test that at some point in the future. Last up, Twinightmare. Not making any changes here because I was super happy with this. Of course, not making any changes for Folklore either, because these mechanics I was super happy with. That said, if you did want to make a change here, one thing you could do is use the Twinightmare Compass. That way, all of these points get redistributed elsewhere, potentially into something like beacon drops. Those will be quite profitable, especially if you have a full 15% chance for them to be upgraded. Or you could go into star shards, because the more maps per hour you do, the more star shards you get, and those are worth a few flame elementium each. And if you want to gamble, maybe put all that into compasses, though I do think this is less consistent than the other two options. In terms of compass changes, basically you're just dropping the Aeterna compass, and you're either replacing it with Twinightmare, if that's what you went for, or alternatively, if you keep those points in Twinightmare chance, then you probably just replace it with a generic loot compass, put more monsters in the map, therefore getting more flame fuel drops. Also remember, this isn't science, this is a vibe check. So if you don't vibe with a strategy, feel free to try something else. And do be sure to let me know down in the comments if there's something else that you think is really cool. I might even check it out in a future video. Though I think for now I'm going to spend a little time crafting, maybe even max my build a little more, and then probably level something else, possibly even the new Carino. So I guess stay tuned for future updates there. Now that said, if you're not in Timemark 8 yet, or you don't have money to get started with something like this, then I would highly recommend checking out my last video, which is a boss rush strategy that works in Timemark 7. Again, it's very easy to pull off, it's quite consistent, and I ended up making a fair bit of profit, though I only did it for a couple hours, so your mileage may vary a little there. What I can say is it costs you nothing to try it, so you're at least guaranteed to not lose money, since it's just Timemark 7 beacons and no mandatory compasses. I'll link to that up in the card and down below, along with my most recent build update. Now, with that said, a big thanks to all the patrons and channel members for the continued support. For as low as $1 a month, you cannot make videos just like this one possible. Link to support is down below. Also, a big thanks to everyone who watched to the end. I'm glad you enjoyed the video. So far this season, I've had quite a bit of fun testing different currency strats, and I'm glad you've enjoyed being along for the ride. I'd say I'm about 50-50 in terms of strats that I like and strats that I dislike. For example, recently on stream, I tested Dark Surge Boss Rush. Didn't enjoy it at all. But hey, that's fine. Other people like it, and the profit wasn't terrible, to be fair. I just didn't vibe with it very much. So I'm glad you've been enjoying, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.